This is a plan that took months and weeks of positioning and preparation so that we could be ready when the President of the United States called.
The operation carried out in complete secrecy, beginning at 12:01 a.m. Saturday morning. About a dozen B-2 bombers taking flight from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. Around half of them heading west towards Guam, those with trackable movements. This was a decoy. Another 7, those with transponders turned off and minimal radio communications, launching a short time later, heading towards Iran. The 18-hour flight to Iran, including mid-air refueling and in-air support.
The B-2s linked up with escort and support aircraft in a complex, tightly timed maneuver requiring exact synchronization across multiple platforms in a narrow piece of airspace, all done with minimal communications.
Approximately 5 p.m. Eastern Time Saturday, a U.S. submarine launching 24 Tomahawk land cruise missiles at key service infrastructure targets for nuclear facility Isfahan. By 6:40 p.m. Eastern Time, the 25-minute mission inside Iran's airspace activating. U.S. fighter jets sweeping in to protect the B-2s from possible enemy missiles and warplanes. The B-2s dropping 30,000-pound massive ordnance penetrator weapons, also known as MOPs, or bunker busters, onto Iran's most complex nuclear enrichment facility, Fordo. Experts say it's carved at least 300 feet below the surface of a stone mountain and reinforced with concrete. The first time ever those bombs used in a strike.
The remaining bombers then hit their targets as well, with a total of 14 MOPs dropped against 2 nuclear target areas.
These before and after satellite images show the destruction at the targeted sites, what appears to be extensive damage in Isfahan. In Natanz, another critical Iranian nuclear facility, an 18-foot wide hole above part of what military officials say is an underground military complex. By the numbers, more than 125 U.S. aircraft, around 75 precision-guided weapons, a piloted mission that was a complete operational surprise.
Iran's fighters did not fly, and it appears that Iran's surface-to-air missile systems did not see us. Throughout the mission, we retained the element of surprise.
Overnight, those bombers returning to Missouri, military officials say it will take time to know the full extent of the damage. And despite all the secrecy surrounding the mission, one of the biggest concerns is whether the Iranians were able to move the enriched uranium before the strikes occurred.
Ladies and gentlemen.
So, you ready to get started again?
Yeah, I'm just shocked over our last podcast and what is happening right now. It's just like when I saw that attack, I was just like, damn.
It's crazy. It is crazy. And it's so, this kind of reminded me that nobody can be right 100% of the time with this kind of stuff. And although we got most of the our points across, because obviously you see them play out, right? I did not expect, I really didn't expect that the U.S. military would even follow an order from Trump. So that changes things a little bit for me, but at least it's not a nuclear bomb.
You were kind of right. It wasn't done it the right way. You know what I mean? Like he didn't ask the Congress. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's not done in the right way. And that was also your point. Like they wouldn't follow the order. It has to be done in the right way. So you were kind of right about that. He went against what you normally do,
Yeah, he went against it, and he's going to be challenged for that. Congress I think they got some meetings set up in 2 days where they have to show the Trump administration has to show the intent, like where was the imminent threat. They have to show that in these hearings, right? But in any case, it doesn't stop the fact that, okay, we did say if they did this, it would have a trickle down effect. That could be the danger, and that's why you wouldn't do it. And then the other reason is like, just in terms of the U.S. military,
Mhm.
I don't think it's so wise because look, Russia invaded Ukraine, but
Yeah.
Russia's a superpower.
Hmm.
Ukraine's not a superpower. So
Exactly.
that means every other superpower gets to watch your tactics,
Hmm.
what you employ, the machinery, the machinery, the weaponry, and how you employ it. They get to
It's
watch
really
that and
foolish. I
study.
know what you mean. It's really foolish what he's doing. Like, it's
Well, so I don't understand why Trump would involve the U.S. military in any type of way that's not necessary, especially you in an attack. Now, so I just think it's also even if you don't attack, you have weaponry and machinery in view of your enemies, just in plain sight. They can see you. They can see your
exactly,
movements. China.
exactly.
I'm talking about China can see the U.S. movements. They can definitely see it.
But what did you
So
expect? Like, in some kind of sense, you remember they had that signal chat that was leaked, or was it WhatsApp chat where they were talking about military targets in Yemen?
right,
You
right.
know,
And
so what do you expect from this administration? Like, these people are idiots. They don't do things the right way. They don't know what they're
yeah,
doing. It's like dealing with morons, basically.
and if you follow the news on the legacy media, they had Hegseth's comments, and they were basically explaining every all the part of their strategy, which is completely stupid to do. But nonetheless, he went through all these little antics where he was like, "Oh, it involved deception, it involved this and that," and then they show you that the first they use U.S. bombers to fly one way, and then the second group that really did the attack came after, and they flew and they had their signal transponders turned off. Why do you tell? Why are you telling all of this? To me, it just seems like I'm telling you straight up, this seems like either Trump is intentionally trying to help Russia and China against the U.S. military, or he is extremely dumb. But check this out. It
I
was
think it's the
reported two
second
days
part.
ago.
He's
Yeah,
extremely
because
dumb. I'm
no,
serious. He's so
or
dumb.
it could be both. Yeah, yeah. He's extremely dumb and someone's taking advantage of him. But they said 2 or 3 days ago, it's in the news. I don't know if legacy media is playing it, but I saw it. I don't know where I saw it. I don't think it was Midas Touch, but it was one of these new top seen YouTube channels, right? But they
Yeah.
said it's credible. The guy said that oh my God! They said that there was a Russian spy invited to the White House 4 days ago. 4 days ago to the White House, a known Russian spy. I don't know why that is not in legacy media. So my thoughts to people would, I think most people, like I'm pretty sure the EU is watching this very, very carefully and wondering what the hell is really going on. Because I definitely myself, I don't think this is normal. This is not normal. So, it's really I think people should be scared. And I don't mean just like people in the EU or anything. I mean people in the Middle East should really hunker down for a war, it seems. And you don't know where it could spread. You don't know where they plan. It looks to me like Putin and Trump are in cahoots, like creating a war on purpose, just creating a war zone, like manufacturing wars, like single handedly between the two. I mean, think about it. They can't be good friends and also be fighting each other at the same time. You can't have Trump making these nice
I
comments and
don't think they're good friends. I think, as you said, in the last podcast, Trump is just a tool that everybody is using. You know what I mean? He's not. You know what I mean? He's not that. Putin don't care about Trump like that. He doesn't give a
no,
fuck
no,
about him.
I
He's
don't think
laughing
things
at
like
him.
that.
And he's
Yeah, but I
also
don't think.
said that it's gonna. He said, I think Putin came out and said recently, after that attack, something along the line of like, this is gonna create bigger problems, basically warning people like it's
You
gonna
know
be
what
a
I think?
problem because Trump did this. Now we're gonna have bigger problems in the world, right?
I think I think Trump knows that he is being used and doesn't care. I think he knows that. I think he's doing it on purpose. I think he is dumb, but I also think he is in
I don't
cahoots.
think he's smart enough to do it on purpose. I'm sorry. I really don't. I,
Yeah,
I really don't. I'm sorry, But I think Trump is literally one of the dumbest people I have ever. I don't think he's playing it. I think the man is literally dumb.
But, but why would you have? Why are they saying it's a Russian spy that was invited to the White House 4 days ago?
Yeah, as you know, you
That-
said, as you heard, like
that's
the
what
Putin statement was basically that it's gonna be big problems happening after this shit. So of course he's gonna send somebody over there talking to Trump and saying, "Hey, you want to have bigger problems in the world or what?" Because in all honesty, I don't think Putin is interested in fighting a lot of proxy wars because in general, wars cost like 2 billions a day just to keep everything going, right? So right now, Israel, and that is like from Western media, Israel is spending like 2 billion or something like that every 2 days just to do what they're doing to the people of Palestine, right? And they're also using 2 billions a day to do what they're doing to Iran. So the whole thing about fighting a two-front war throughout history, we know that's a suicide mission. It's gonna drain your economy, and second of all,
Yeah, but
you're
I
not
don't
gonna
think.
win it. That's how the little mustache man in the 1940s of Germany didn't win because the Russians were on one side and the U.S. and its allies was on the other side, right? Basically, that's
Right, but
why he
check this
couldn't
out.
fucking win, and it's a
But
stupid
is
thing, and
it?
that's why even Russia is not interested in beefing with China because fighting with China that would also create a two-front war, and that is something they can't win. So
Right,
like
but I don't.
that's not something any any military is not interested in just basically using so much money if they're not guaranteed that they're gonna achieve the goal that they're gonna achieve. And recently,
Well,
with the illegal wars the U.S. have had, they spent a lot of billions, trillions on these wars. So many people died, and they didn't win any of them, right? So it would be
well,
reasonable just to
that's
hold
what I.
on with that war
But
tactic
that,
and try
right,
to
but you,
negotiate and have some trade and some diplomacy going on instead.
yeah, but see, you're making sense. But what Trump's doing, that's the interesting thing. Do they need there to be a winner in a conflict? Because look at this: Israel attacks Iran, right? Iran attacks Israel, or whichever way you want to call it, whoever, because people are going to go back and argue who started it all the time. It doesn't matter. They both responded to each other and they're attacking each other, right? So then Iran, the U.S. the U.S. is a superpower. It now enters the engagement and strikes Iran. Iran strikes Qatar and strikes Iraq. I think they're even striking Iraq right now near some U.S. military base. Here's the thing: the U.S. didn't win. They didn't win in Afghanistan, right? China won.
Not in Iraq, and they didn't win in Libya. You know what happened with
Right,
the whole
but,
Benghazi and Hillary and all
but,
that bullshit,
but check
right?
it out.
So
Yes, but
all
check
these
it out.
things the last 25 years when they said that declared that they wanted to have a war against terror, that is when I laughed. I was like a young teenager, but I laughed because I was like, how can you have war against something that has always existed in
But,
history? Like
but
the
Amar,
Romans used terror, but people don't understand that terror would always exist no matter how
right?
they
But
twist and turn it. But you cannot win against something like that. But you can say that
Amar,
you're gonna
no,
try
no,
to
Amar, no,
uh,
Amar. You can win. You
no,
can win.
that's impossible.
Check
Terror
it out.
would always
No, but check it
exist
out.
before and
No,
after the
but
US's existence. It has always
no,
existed
but check out how.
historically.
It's not the U.S. that can win that. It's not. That's not even the whole
But
point.
they
The
didn't win
point
any
is,
of it. The truth be
no,
told,
no,
so far
listen,
the war on
listen.
terror has started in 2001, and every war that the US has entered since, they have not won them, and that's
You're making
fact.
sense. You're making sense. I'm not disputing that. But what I'm saying is this: look at who does win. Look at who does win.
The
Who has moved
terrorists,
into? No,
the
listen.
terrorists.
Who, who has moved into Afghanistan? China won that. It wasn't Russia. It wasn't the U.S. China won that, right? Look
No,
at
I
North.
would say Taliban won that because Taliban
Oh,
is
oh,
still having the power in this case.
look, because check this out. Someone wins. It may not be the people that use all the weapons, right? Necessarily, but somebody wins because if the goal is to get control over a region and trade with them, then look at North Africa. Who won this Sahel thing? Who is winning even in Sudan? Who's supplying the weapons there? Who's doing all of this, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so, the U.S. Look at what happened. The U.S. went in and they took out Gaddafi. They took out Saddam. Did they win? No, that's not the point. Somebody won. And in geopolitics, the question is who is the player that's going to be there at the end of this? Who's going to benefit from all of it? It's
I
not
don't
who
think the
shoots the
US is
weapon.
going to benefit from this conflict right now. That is what I might analyze, what I
I
have
don't either.
researched myself through. That this basically that, and also from what I know in history and stuff like that, and thinking about all the wars we have had, not just now. I'm talking about ancient wars. I'm not talking just about the new modern wars, and how those strategies, when it comes to how they lost, and how empires fell, how the Roman Empire fell, and all these things. Then you look at the U.S. right now, and as you said the last time, the U.S. hegemony. How do you say hegemony? I'm not an English speaker. What do you
Yeah,
say?
yeah, yeah. I think it's hegemony.
Uh,
It's hegemony. Yeah, exactly. Or homogeneous, something like that. Yeah.
Hermione, yeah,
Yeah.
Hermione. Yeah,
Just
exactly.
control. Just
Exactly.
control.
Something like that. Anyways, you know what I mean.
Check
That
out.
is like that is ending right now because the US didn't only create an enemy with their enemies, they also created an enemy with their allies. And that is not a smart move. And that doesn't mean that this is like it's
But
like
back
a
to this point, though.
suicide mission.
Before you go there, because I know you want to go there, but before you go there, back to the point I was trying to make is
Hmm.
this one. You know, the experts that are criticizing Trump are all saying what you said.
Hmm.
So why the hell is Trump doing it? And see, that's the thing. Think about this. Why would he do it? Because all the experts are saying that's not what you should do because you can't win it and China's going to benefit. That's what they're saying. The U.S. can't win a war. Israel can't
Yeah,
win a war.
you are right. China is gonna benefit. It's the second largest
The,
economy in the world. So
the U.S. exactly, and the American taxpayers, right? They already have said, "Look, we've been in Iraq. Look at how that turned out. We sent our military to go into Libya. Look at how that worked out. We sent our military to go in Afghanistan. Look at how that worked out. So the large consensus of Americans has always been like, we don't need to be sending our troops back anywhere. Let other people do the fighting and we can come in here and there, right? But what Trump has done, right, is he's done it backwards. He's done everything backwards, right? And you just have to wonder, like, is it? I mean, maybe it's just me, but I have a hard time believing that this is just an accident. And then think about this. Look at the excuses they
it's
make.
not an
You can't,
accident. It's about ego, as we talked about last time. This is Trump's ego talking. Like when he wanted that, he said Israel has the Iron Dome. Now I want to have a golden dome, a huge golden dome over the U.S. And then the military experts told him, dude, you cannot have a golden dome over the US because it's not possible. It's too big of a country. And he was
right? So
thinking
that
in his
means
Delulu land that you could have
so that,
something so big over the US, like intercepting with radars and all that, because that's basically what it is. It's like a radar system that just intercepts missiles. It's not a dome, but in his head, he wanted a gold
right.
dome over the US. Like this is how this guy
Yeah.
thinks.
But look,
you
but
know?
listen, but if you're trying to play Trump, if you're the person trying to play him, you would try to goad him into doing something stupid that you can't win. You would try to get him to do, and think of that's what I find so curious. And think about this. Um, Russia went to war against Ukraine, but that was stupid because everyone could sit back and watch Russia. They could learn Russia's flaws in combat as a superpower. Everyone could sit back and watch. So that's why a superpower doesn't even want to invest so much time in someone who's not a superpower,
That's why
because
they use proxy wars to do their dirty business.
all you're really doing is exposing yourself to your own enemy when you do that in the first place. So it seems to me like Trump just saw this happen with Russia. Why would he try to employ the same strategy with Iran? It doesn't make sense. It's the losing strategy, is what I'm saying. It's
Because
it
you do understand that Putin is not a friend of America, and Trump is an idiot. So of course he's gonna talk him into doing something stupid. Everybody's doing that. Everybody can benefit from that. You understand?
Right.
Netanyahu is also doing that. Don't you think all the world's leaders are trying to do the same thing with him? You understand? Also the European leaders, they're also taking the piss on him. Everybody's trying to take the piss on this guy, and this guy is falling for the bait every single time.
Yeah,
And
he's
that's
falling
what's
for it
happening.
every single time. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree. He's definitely an idiot, and he's obviously been goaded into all of this stuff, and it's terrible because it's involving other people's lives. Look at how many other people's lives get. And think about this, Amal. Think about this too. This also popped in my mind. Okay, so let's say you're Putin and you hate the U.S. and you hate Trump. Let's say you're China and you hate Trump. Let's say you're Iran and you hate Trump. Okay, you hate Trump. You hate the US. But do you want the region experiencing war as the consequence of that?
Not really. That's why China is saying, like, we want trade. Europe is saying, we want trade. Like, everybody, even, like, nobody wants this thing. They know this idiot is You have to understand, this is like a Netanyahu war. This is not a Putin war. This is a war that is instigated by Netanyahu. This is the guy that's trying to benefit from it. He's trying to avoid getting to Den Haag eventually, and Trump doesn't know he's gonna join him there. That is the thing. He thinks that he's gonna be one of those guys that can escape all these war crimes. You understand what I mean? But I think there's gonna be a Nuremberg trial 2.0 soon. After all this settles, and they're not gonna escape this because, to be honest, that's what I'm trying to say to you. If you look at the economy, right, in the world economy, you have to see there's two sides right now. There's the BRICS Plus nations that want to build their own thing. Iran is a part of BRICS Plus. China is a part of BRICS Plus. Russia is. All these guys don't have no interest. They have been trying to build this shit for over 20 years, right? South Africa is a BRICS nation. There's many nations that are BRICS nations. They have no damn interest in sabotaging that for themselves, right? At the same time, the EU feels like this is what the economical experts are saying. The EU have felt for a long time now that they can't count on the US, and that started already the first period that Trump had, like the first time he was elected. Already
Yeah.
there, that's when the distrust started. So they already knew at that time, if that guy ever gets elected again, we have to have some kind of strategy. We have to do something about this. How are we gonna survive, right? And that's why they
Right.
went to Iran, as you said. They sent delegations, and they're not interested in escalating this. They're interested in trade, right?
Yeah.
And China is
Yeah.
interested in trade. Netanyahu is not interested in trade. He's literally destroying his own little country's economy, right? By doing two-front war, by fighting Gaza at the same time fighting Iran, and being surrounded by countries that like Lebanon with Hezbollah, and Lebanon got attacked last year by Israel. So that can happen too. Yemen, the Houthis there. Like, does he understand this is gonna destroy? Not, and the thing is, any sane person right now, and I think that the experts, there is some mechanism is in the US that won't allow Trump to actually go there. You know what I mean? They go there to literally destroy everything the US stands for and everything the US has built up. I don't believe that's ever going to happen. He's not going to be the guy that can ever have that power to do that. But I think he has already destroyed so much of the US's reputation. And now, what we talked about when it comes to trade, they are looking elsewhere. The EU is looking elsewhere when it comes to oil deals and all these things. They're looking elsewhere. They're not. You understand that? They're looking at Iran right now. That's why they send people down there. They're not interested in what Trump and Netanyahu's mission is. Because
Yeah, they're
we
definitely
also
not
have an
interested.
energy crisis here in Europe. Well, not where I am right now, but in the EU, right? And that is
Yeah.
why they are looking elsewhere because it costs a lot to import energy from the US. It costs not a lot to import energy from countries that are far away. It's much easier to
Yeah,
import energy from
yeah.
the
It
Middle East
requires
because
a
it's
new
closer.
investment.
Like,
Yeah, exactly.
all these things. So it makes no damn sense. And on the top of that, with the trade, Iran controls that. There's a Iran, the territory, Somalia, where I'm from, has the Red Sea, and that's why it was a problem with trade with the piracy thing that was going on, right? The same
Mhm.
thing by Yemen, the same thing with the Suez Canal in Egypt, and the same thing in Iran, and that's why Iran is a big player in the Middle East. You understand?
Right.
And nobody's interested in it. Do you think China is interested in stopping their trade? Do you think Russia is
Right.
interested in stopping their business? Do you think the
I
EU is
mean,
interested in that?
you know, but here, this is the thing. Yeah, it's true. I agree. I mean, I don't know why. I don't think China is interested to that degree at all.
They
But for
already came
some
out and
reason,
said they're not involving themselves. They are saying there was attack on Iran, and they think that Netanyahu should stop, but they're not interested in entering any war or doing anything like that. And now you have also this conflict with India and Pakistan. India is also a BRICS nation, right? So when you think about
let
all
me ask you
these
this.
BRICS nations, they are not interested in sabotaging
But
something they tried to build for 25 years. And
I would
perhaps
think
we
they
don't
would
know
be.
if the EU joins BRICS in the future because of how the US is conducting in the world right now. We don't know that. There's some
I don't
EU
think.
experts that say perhaps that's going
I
to
don't.
happen. We don't
I
know.
don't think. Yeah, but I put it to you like this. I think so much more have to happen before the EU would consider that. Because think about this: China, they they might be against war. They may see it as messing up their trade. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock, because it does. But they didn't seem to think that way when Russia invaded Ukraine, and that fucks up trade too. It's just a matter of who it fucks
Yeah, but
up.
it's because
You
they're
know?
trading with Russia. They don't care about what's
Right.
happening in
So,
Ukraine. They're not a big trading partner with China. Why should they
so
care about that? In business, people don't care about those things. They care about where can I get my money from, right?
yeah, but
They-
yeah, China, yeah, exactly. China was thinking about where can I get my honey from, and so in that kind of environment, they didn't care about that conflict, how it affects the EU. So in terms of BRICS, I would be thinking the first thing the EU would say is, well, you first gotta get if you want us to be a part of BRICS. I mean, I don't even think it's even have to be get to that level
No, there
before
are
they
some
start making.
experts
Hold on,
in
hold on,
the
hold on,
EU
hold on.
that's saying
I
that
don't think
this
they.
is this is
I don't.
in this is not happening, but there's some kind of voices in the EU that is kind of leaning towards that because of how unstable Trump is. You understand what I mean?
Right,
Like that you can be
right.
so
I got you.
desperate that you can actually think we should do this instead because now, like, and that's what we talked about. There's a new world order coming up. Whether people like it or not, things are shifting and we can't change that and we don't know what comes with that, you know. It could be
Right, but
that
why? Why?
to
Let me
have
ask you this.
peace in the Middle East, that the EU actually joins BRICS plus.
But
We
think
don't know
about
that.
this. Yeah, but think about this. I get that part, but why would I'm just saying this. To me, it seems like way before you would even get to even considering something like joining BRICS, the first thing you would do was tell China, you need to start openly putting pressure on Russia to stop this war in Ukraine. That would be the first thing that would pop in my mind because, like you
I think
said,
they would do
hold
something
on,
like
like
that
you said,
because
like you said,
the way the world looks right now, I'm serious, Victor. This man has fucked so much shit up. I don't even know if it can, you know what I mean? It can be salvaged. Like he fucked up so much shit at this moment, and that's why I'm saying like this is like we didn't think that Trump would bomb Iran, but that happened. You know, we don't know what's gonna happen. That's what I'm saying. We don't know, and that's why I'm just like
right, but
it's a
Amar, check this out.
possibility.
Right,
I'm
but
not counting that out.
yeah, because well, no worries. I'm not saying you are, but check this out. Because, like you said this. You said China was concerned about their milk and honey. It doesn't affect them, but it does affect the EU. And so, in my mind, I would be thinking like that's how the game is going to be played out. Like it's likely that the EU is going to be putting pressure on China or communicating with China to get Putin to stop the war. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense because why would you try to work with China if they're not even willing to help solve your problem also? If your problem and my problem, if I have a problem I can solve for you, and you have a problem you can solve for me, then to me it seems like tit for tat. You know what I mean? I don't see why either group, because both group is powerful. The EU is a big economic bloc, and a big security bloc on its own, right? China is also. So I don't see why the EU.
China
To
is
me, it's
not only a big economy in that kind of sense, they're also part of most of the world's like greater economy in that kind of sense with the BRICS nations. And that's why, when you talk about trade and all these things, like I have been nerding a bit since the pandemic in economy and how the economy is going around the world and all these things. And when I do my research, I just think there's so many things that are happening that people are not aware of, and it's kind of like, what the heck? That is not something I expected. So this, when I first heard about that the EU might join the BRICS nations, I was just like, this is a fairy tale story. I don't believe one bit of this. You know what I mean? I didn't believe it. But then when I heard the
I don't
argument
think
and
they would
why
join.
they would consider it, then I was like, it makes sense. Trump is fucking too much shit up, you know?
Yeah, but I think it's I don't know where that idea comes from because to me it just seems like no, you need to let the BRICS nations do a lot more work developing it. Like before you would just say we join that because think about how long the EU and effort the EU has spent on developing its own. I mean, the EU itself is a trading bloc.
Yeah, but there's a reason that,
Sure.
for example, Denmark didn't take the euro. There's a reason. You have to understand these things. The euro is not that. You have to understand. There's certain nations that didn't take the euro for a reason, and we see how much better sometimes other. If, for example, the Swiss franc is a better, like it's one, not better, is actually one of those currencies that you have to invest in some kind of sense because it's always stable in that kind of sense. Is always a stable currency to have, right?
Hmm.
And that is also to do with the fact that the Swiss people didn't want to have a euro. There's a reason for that. The euro is not that great of a currency as people actually believe it to be. The US dollar is, right? The Swiss
Yeah, the US
franc
dollar.
is, the Swiss franc is, but the euro and the British pound is. The Danish kroner is also a great currency to have. Like when you actually they found
Right.
out at that time, people when they the people that were against taking it at that time, I remember they were saying, yeah, but I don't think it would be better for us in that kind of sense. I think that our currency would be stronger in the other end in the long run, right? If we keep our
Right.
currency. And we see that. We see that. So
Right. That's what I
over
mean.
20 years later.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So to me, it doesn't seem like the EU would even think about doing BRICS. You know what I'm saying? Like they can trade with BRICS anyway. They trade with BRICS nations already.
Yeah,
So it's
exactly.
to
That's
me, it's like
how trade works. But I'm just like in general, if it could help stabilize the Middle East, like that's the only reason I would think they would go into something like that. If they could be a part of stabilizing the Middle East for like having peace times for real, not a joke, but a for real, right? And then they
yeah,
would also secure their own energy, and then the economy would grow, right? That is how it is.
yeah,
And we need our economies to grow because our technology is developing and our technology requires more and more energy. So the math won't math if we don't have peacetime soon. If we want robots on Mars or whatever ideas people come out with, you know what I mean? We need that
yeah.
energy and we need to stop fighting each other to get that energy. It's just really
True.
simple.
But I don't think they're going to go to the bricks to do that. But check this out. But what's the other thing though? You know, you were saying what was it? Oh, well, there's one thing I wanted to also talk about.
Hmm.
But you were saying something about Nuremberg trial. It was one other issue you were saying. But I'm talking. Did you hear this news? Did you hear the news, man? I totally
Which
forgot
news?
about this. But there's some book that was out about Trump. The
Hmm.
guy who recorded Jeffrey Epstein, right? The guy who recorded Jeffrey
Oh
Epstein,
my
all
God.
these
Yeah.
interviews with Jeffrey Epstein, right? He wrote a book, right?
Hmm.
And see, the tapes are so many and the book is so big. It's so much shit in that book. It took time for people to kind of go through it, right? But
Hmm.
one of the things that the writer says of the book, the guy who recorded Jeffrey Epstein,
Hmm.
right? He says that he saw like a dozen pictures, something like that. I don't know if it's a handful or or a
Yeah,
couple of
he is
handfuls
like there
of
is a court
photographs.
case with
No, he
Donald
said he saw
Trump.
no. He said he had photographs. Photographs. He saw five
Damn.
photographs. Listen, he saw like a hand or two dozen, a dozen, maybe a dozen pictures, right, of Trump himself. He saw these pictures of Trump in his boxers underwear, something like that. Quote, with four, seemingly underage girls that were topless. Yes, that's
Hmm.
what's coming out. And the guy is asking, it's in this guy's book, and people are asking, why isn't legacy media talking about this? Why is this not on CNN? Why is this not on ABC? It's in the guy's book. They should have been the first to break it. They should have been the first to break it. How can this guy, and then think about the Jeffrey Epstein files, he
Yeah.
still hasn't released it. He hasn't released it. We all know
Yes, and
why.
then Elon
It's
Musk is
obvious, right?
saying
But
that's the
but
reason that
then
he does it because he's in them. That's the reason he doesn't want to release them. That's what his body is saying.
right. And if this writer said he saw these pictures himself, that have to be in the FBI files. But why isn't legacy media talking about it? Why are you can't find outlets talking about it.
Because there is like you have to understand corruption happens, right? So there's people that are paid to shut the fuck up, and there's people that are not. There's people that can speak freely and say whatever they want to say, and there's people that rather, yeah, like that's why we have lobbyism in politics, right? You know, so that's basically what it is. Also with media, and there's a lot of people that are not speaking up because they are getting paid to shut up. And I think in this situation with Donald Trump, did you know there is a court case? Like I have been following this whole thing with Donald Trump. The lady that recently died, she's called Virginia something, right? And she
Right.
was
One of
the
the victims.
one that broke the
Think she
whole
committed
the
suicide or
FB
something?
files thing, right? And she
Yeah.
recently
Okay.
died, right?
Committed
And
suicide?
uh, yeah, suicide. First, there was something with a car crash, and then the next story was that there was suicide. It's a little
Mm,
weird. Uh,
it's sad.
and she was the one that said that Donald Trump was Donald Trump is not a person that is on the flight logs because you can see the flight logs. There's some things that has been released, right? He has been too much at that guy's place. He was not only at the island, he was on different residents where Jeffrey Epstein was. And there's a picture of him, this circulating around online, where he's standing and Jeffrey Epstein is standing next to him at a party, right? And there's also a picture of Donald Trump when a young I don't want to guess the age, but she was really young, right?
Mm,
And standing and holding this girl inappropriately, right? So
mm,
there's a lot of things that people have seen with this guy over the time, but people were called conspiracy theorists for that shit, right? And
mm,
what has come out now is like even Elon Musk is saying that the reason this guy is not releasing is because he is in there. He is one of those guys that was the creep there. And if you think about the creepy shit he has said about his own daughter over the years, Ivanka, that he would have married her and he would have done her, and it's inappropriate pictures of him holding Ivanka when she was younger in inappropriate, like a way that a dad shouldn't hold their daughter or touch their daughter anyway. There's literally pictures of him doing that shit. Him saying this out of his own mouth, how he is so fascinated by his own daughter and all these things, and saying very inappropriate things you shouldn't say, right?
All
So,
right. Well, okay, go ahead.
so
Yep.
that's where it is for me, that there is so much going on with this guy.
Well, in this book also, right? The guy who recorded these tapes, in the tapes, when Jeffrey Epstein is talking, this is another reason why it's like, why isn't legacy media talking about it? Because a lot of what Epstein is talking about is his firsthand knowledge of his conversations with Trump, apparently, or someone in the White House about Trump in his first term. Like, remember, Jeffrey Epstein is still alive, but it's right during his first term when these recordings are being made. And Jeffrey
Oh
Epstein is
my
talking about,
God, that's some
listen,
crazy shit.
Jeffrey Epstein is explaining how Trump deals with his own staff, the antics, the way he does things, the manipulation, all of this stuff, how he deals with people. But he's talking about it from the perspective of giving the examples of his own staff while he's in the White House, like actual stories.
Yeah, because they are good friends and have been for a long time. There's literally evidence. I've seen those pictures with my own eyes. You understand what I mean? Not those pictures, but other pictures of him being with Jeffrey Epstein. You
And
cannot,
look,
you cannot delete
yes,
that. This are things that has been out for a very long time, since the
and
whole case broke out back in the day.
yeah, and check this. Donald Trump knew that that book came out. He knew that Jeffrey Epstein had recorded those things. He knew about this stuff, right? And Jeffrey Epstein dies while Donald Trump is the president.
Oh,
You understand?
damn! I forgot he was the president at that time.
Yeah, he was the president.
That's
So
some
the so
crazy
the
shit.
so the sequence is that Jeffrey Epstein talks about Trump in details, all about Trump and Trump in the White House, but also Trump before the White House. 10 years of shit. You know what I'm saying? They were best friends. He talks about all of that shit and talks about firsthand account shit in the White House, right? Not that he's getting from someone else in the White House, maybe Trump, maybe not. They're still friends while he's in the White House.
Mhm.
And then he makes this recording and then he dies.
Yeah, I always said
And
there was something suspicious about that guy's death, but call me a conspiracy theorist or whatever you want to do. I saw
Well,
that picture of Jeffrey and Trump, and there's literally
I'm
documentaries.
not
There has been
sure.
a whole court case with this
Listen,
guy. That's why he was in jail. Ghislaine Maxwell. I followed all of that shit in details,
well, you know
and
what I want to know? I want to know where the guy saw the pictures while he was interviewing Jeffrey Epstein. So does that mean Epstein showed him those pictures? Is that what
yes,
he's meaning?
yes.
And
Epstein used his
that's
little
another.
black book to blackmail people. That was his thing, and that was also something that Ghislaine Maxwell said. This little black book was where he had everybody that was involved, celebrities, even Andrew. Prince Andrew also got disowned from the royal family when the case broke, right? He's not involved in the royal family anymore in that kind of way. And since Charles got in power now, then it even got worse for him because he keeps getting kicked out of from palace or place that he lives in because of this case.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
and that is what I'm trying to say to you. Like, from if the royal family of the UK is involved in this creepiness, right? And there is Donald Trump on pictures and a bunch of other celebrities. It's not just Donald Trump, right? And these people are still at loose. Donald Trump
right.
is maybe the guy that, and then I'm like thinking about all the celebrities that endorsed Donald Trump. Were they also on that fucking list? You know?
Right.
You understand
Right.
what I mean? It's not because
Right.
I'm thinking like I want to incriminate people, but I'm just like, yes, if Jeffrey Epstein died while Donald Trump was president, he would have done you a favor if you were on that island,
Oh,
Poor,
that is
you know
yeah,
what I
because
mean? So
exactly
that's,
because look at what he did. Look at what he did for this guy, for the mayor of New York. Now, but I could see how it could be
yeah, Rudy
precarious to talk
Giuliani.
though. 'Cause- No, no, I'm talking about the mayor of New York.
Wasn't Rudy once the mayor of New York?
No, it's the Abrams. It's the current one. It's the
Okay.
current one. He got him off of those federal charges, and so that kind of shows you that Donald Trump is really he puts pressure on the state, or in any case, in any way that he can, on people that he wants to do things the way he wants it anyway. He shows people that if he wants to help you, he will go out of his way, right? But it's obvious he didn't go out of his way to help Jeffrey Epstein, and it's probably because of what Jeffrey Epstein knows and his situation. But you could guess that would be what it is, right? So how could he come out in public and defend him when Jeffrey Epstein is in jail, on trial for da-da? It would be so obvious, right? So, but the fact of the matter is that Jeffrey Epstein died, and Jeffrey Epstein outed Trump, literally outed Trump. That's what that means. And
Yeah,
the
that's
headlines
true.
in the legacy media, the headlines in the legacy media should have been Jeffrey Epstein outs Trump and damning audio recordings and photographs. That should have been what the legacy media story was, but they didn't cover it at all. They just barely covered it. They just kind of touched on it. It's like when you have a bombshell like that, that's supposed to be blasted everywhere. So it
Right?
seems to me, like you said, like somebody put the stop switch on that. Like a lot of
Exactly.
people,
Exactly.
it's
And it
crazy.
he how Jeffrey Epstein died. I'm sorry, call me a conspiracy theorist. The security guys were sleeping. He hanged himself in a top security prison where you are not even it shouldn't even be possible for you to have a sheet to hang yourself in, right? What the fuck is going on here? Like, there's so many things. Something was going wrong with the lights. It was dark suddenly. There's so many weird things that happened around his death, right? And
Right,
then you told me
right.
now, because I didn't even think about it, that Donald Trump was the president. And I was like,
But he
that
was.
makes sense, right?
Yeah,
Because
the
of the
guy died
pictures
while
I
he was the
saw
president.
of him. And he said, there's a quote of him in the 90s at a party with Jeffrey Epstein saying something along the line of, I like, I like mine young. Take it as
Yeah,
you
he did
want.
say that, or something like that. I don't know about that
Along
one,
the
but I
line,
heard.
something along the line of that. I
Well,
don't
well,
quote me.
there was one. There was one where I think he said, where on audio, on video, Trump said Jeffrey Epstein likes him young. I believe that might be what it is.
Yeah, I think something like that. That is what it was. That was what it
Yeah.
was.
And how
But
would he know? You know what I'm saying? How would Trump know that? You
no,
know what
but
I'm saying?
at the end of the day, just the fact that how he talked about his daughter when she was really young, and how fascinated he was with her in a creepy way. Like, I'm sorry, this is not in a normal way. He is a PDF file. The way he talked about his daughter, no normal dad would ever talk that way about his daughter. And that, I stand on that. As a mother, I stand on that. I don't care about the repercussions of this. I'm serious. This man said the most creepiest things about his daughter. And if you follow that rabbit hole in this conspiracy world, right? You would find out that he said all these things. I can pull some of those quotes up. I have to go on my computer.
Yeah. Well, I think you know, I think the evidence, these other things are like things that seem to me to be more material, right? Like you definitely know that this guy Epstein outed him on recordings. And people definitely know that Epstein died after those recordings. And people know that Epstein was talking about stuff Trump was doing while Trump was in the White House, things that you can only know from someone in the White House that's around Trump or Trump himself, how he's dealing with people, right? And I just find that, like, how is it that Secret Service would know about it, right? You know that. You know the FBI would know about it, right? Wouldn't they know about that? And I just think
Yeah.
that is
You know
something
what
very
he said?
concerning.
He said, I found some of those quotes. Uh, uh, Stacey Williams, hold on. Stacey Williams said, "This is the Times of India, right? Is one of, but I'm gonna find another one if if it's not sufficient enough. But these quotes, remember myself.
No, but that's what I'm saying. How come
It
it's not even in legacy media? That's weird.
it says in 1993, with only 2 weeks remaining for the election 2024, former President Donald Trump faced a new allegation of harassment as a former model accused Trump of groping her at an event in Trump Tower in 1993. Stacey Williams said there was a twisted game being played and Trump was with Jeffrey Epstein. Okay. Every, Ever since the allegation surfaced, Trump's old comments about his daughter, Ivanka Trump, went viral, indicating that Trump made lewd comments about his daughter as well. Among many
Mm.
remarks that Trump made about his daughter Ivanka included voluptuous, a piece of ass. He also said if
Yeah,
Ivanka
that's
wasn't
crazy.
his daughter, Trump would have dated her. You know who
That is crazy.
He also said, "You know who one of the greatest beauties of the world, according to everybody? And I helped create her, Ivanka, my daughter, Ivanka. She's six
That
feet tall.
so
She
weird.
got the best body. She made a lot of money as a model, a tremendous amount," Trump said in 2003 at the Howard Stern show.
Yeah, that's true. I remember seeing that. That is so creepy to say.
Best
Those
body.
kind of
Why would you say that? Okay. And he said something else. "Let me tell you one thing. Ivanka is great, great beauty. Every guy in the country wants to go out with my daughter, but she got a boyfriend," Trump said in 2004 in New York Magazine interview.
Yeah, he seems totally out of his mind. Actually, that's so bad. That is also material. You could say
But
it's sickening.
that's weird. Like, just the fact that you would comment on your daughter's body, and there's pictures of him with her when she was a child or younger, like when she was younger as a teenager and as a child, where there's inappropriate pictures of them together. You understand what I mean?
Okay, oh, right.
So
You were
with
telling me
those
about
comments
that.
and
Yeah.
with those pictures, it wouldn't be far fetched what Jeffrey Epstein said about that guy.
Well, there's another thing that he said in the recordings. In the recordings, he said that Trump would do a trick on his close friends. He would try to propose to his close friends that were married to allow him to sleep with their wives. Is straight up. That's what he is being discussed. One of the things being discussed on that tape by Jeffrey Epstein. And Jeffrey Epstein said that he played this trick where he would call the guy's wife and set the guy up and say, hey, while he's talking to the guy, he would have his wife on the line listening. And, while Trump and the guy are together in person, he would have the wife on the phone, and he would be saying, hey, man, let's go. I got some girls. I got all set up. Let's go there. We can have sex with them per se. Don't quote me, but those kind of words. We're going to get them. We're going to have them, this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Meaning they're going to have sexual acts with them, right? Now, saying that while the guy's wife would be on the phone. And then what he would do is blackmail them and say, hey, listen, can you let me sleep with your wife? Something like this. Either he would fake like their wives were on the phone or they were on the phone, or it's something like that. It's in these tapes. And that that is really peculiar, because essentially what they're saying is that Trump tries to have sex with the people's wives around him. The people's wives around him. And check
It's
this out.
crazy.
And think about this. What happened? Elon Musk just took the guy Miller, one of Trump's cabinet members or appointees, something like that. He just took his wife, his girlfriend from him. They had a fight. That's one of the reasons why he had a black eye. Is he had two fights, Elon Musk,
That
and
is
one of them.
crazy. Oh my
That's
God.
crazy, right? So I'm like, what the hell is going on?
Those guys are
And
crazy.
it's
And
just,
Elon is also saying that Donald Trump is on those files. So it's weird
well,
because after they have this falling out, he's saying this shit, right? But in the beginning, the reason that he appointed the new FBI director was that because Elon Musk wanted to find out about the Epstein files, right? And he wanted
right,
him to investigate that. And then I think Elon Musk got some insight
deflection,
into that, right?
deflection.
A-
Yeah,
And he
exactly.
found out that he's actually helping the guy that is in the files, you know?
It seems so,
And
something
then he
like
was
that.
like, all my whole reputation is tanking everywhere in the world. Nobody's buying my cars, they're burning them. Nobody cares about me anymore.
Yeah,
And
it's obvious
this is
he's
because
trying to
of this
repair his
guy, and I
damage.
supported him,
Yeah,
and he's not supportive of me. And then they had a whole public breakup, like a whole
but I'm,
telenovela on
but I'm
Twitter.
curious. Yeah, but I'm curious. Like, I don't. I wouldn't put it past Elon Musk to have known that even before that, and just went along with it anyway, just for his own self gain. And then when he gets tired of Trump or there's a problem, then he holds that over his head. I think a lot of people suspected Trump was in those files anyway. People did suspect Trump was in those files. That's almost so obvious. You either going people knew Trump was in the files anyway. They knew that from the beginning because it had already been public knowledge that his name was on a lot of plane rides with Jeffrey Epstein, this kind of thing. It was public knowledge that they were friends for a long time. Trump had already admitted it. It's like, so Elon Musk had to suspect something, in the first place, So to me, I'm like,
I
to me, it
think he
just
knew.
seems like he didn't
I
care.
think, to be honest, Elon
He
Musk
just,
comes from a very strange family. His dad married his own stepdaughter, so I think they're those type
exactly.
of PDF file types of guys like Diddy and R. Kelly and Trump and Jeffrey and all these types. Andrew, they they kind of they kind of like they align. They like each other. They hang out. You know what I mean? And that
Seems
is what
so.
have happened, because why would Trump even hang out with a person like Jeffrey
Hang
Epstein?
out with these people.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, in the
exactly.
first place. Think
Yep,
about it.
exactly. Yeah, well, it's all getting aired out in 2025, it appears. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes from here, you
Yeah,
know.
it is
But
to be continued for us.
yeah, but it was a good episode, and it was a good talk. It was good to kind of talk about what happened after our little predictions and to see how they matched up with today, just a day or two later, right? And it seems like very hard times, very wild times coming, and who knows what the next explosion is going to be or thing that's going to happen in the world events, man. It's
I'm
it's
not
really moving rapidly.
surprised.
Yeah,
I'm
I just
just
hope
sitting
people stay
here
safe.
eating my popcorn.
Yeah,
It, like, really, to be honest, it's like watching a reality show. But what can you expect? You have
I
a
just don't
reality
want
show
to
president. That's why you have a reality show world. That's what
right.
happens.
Yeah, and don't and something's got to be done about it. And I think it's going to be real challenging times for people to kind of try to put down their own grievances to solve this. It's obvious that if there's not people willing to put down their grievances, old grievances, they won't get past this part. To me, it seems like that because a lot of these tensions are old tensions that just seem to keep,
Yeah,
being
flaring up.
rehashed over and over
Exactly.
and over. Yeah, and it's a real waste of energy. When you think about where the earth is right now and where humanity is, this really seems like a lot of, well, I'm not trying to point the finger, but it seems like these leaders need to get their shit together. A lot of wasted energy right now on nothing,
Or
nothing to be
nothing. It's
gained.
bullshit.
You
I
know,
know it's bullshit. And people
so
are just, and then they wonder why people don't care anymore. Like, why people are not satisfied. Why, like, we keep voting for psychopaths and crazy people. Like, what the fuck? Of course,
you
people
know
are gonna
what?
get tired. Reality stars and weirdos
Yeah.
and corrupt leaders, and we just like, yeah, we don't want this. We want a better
And you know
world. We
what?
just want to have peace.
Yeah.
It's just you
Yeah.
guys don't want to have war. Like we just here, we're coexisting with one another. We have our neighbors. We're chilling. We're not treating each other bad. You know what I mean? And that kind of sense is the corporations, is the political leaders. You know.
Well, yeah, and I think that just like the people that are going to do well are the people that are not caught up in fighting each other. I think that's where the progress is going to go on. And the people that are just caught
The
up in fighting,
diplomats of this
they're
world.
going to stand still. They're going to stand still. Their societies are going to stand still. They're not going to move forward. And yeah, so let's see how it goes. I hope everybody is safe, and people do try to find a way to make peace where they can make it. It should be easy enough. Most people want the same things, so we see. But
Yeah.
cool. Thanks again, and
Thank you too.
let's see. Yeah, let's catch
It
up in
was
a couple days.
another great talk. Thank you for today.
Word, exactly. And thank you. And
And
yeah,
much
it's
love.
also been very revealing to some of these events. So yeah. Anyway, I hope everybody stays safe, and we catch y'all later.
Yes. To be continued.
They want war. Crime babies looking for food. Starvation, the recipe. People subdued. When the people you trust got it in for you. Deceit is the word of the day in every crew. Don't let it go. It's from the days of old. Time is up, but some still do not know. Can I make up my mind? Is it worth the dime? Do I have to take a minute just to make it mine? Life's never fair, but don't listen to the TV. Go out and take a listen to the streets with the people in the slums and the homeless bums with degrees and degrees sitting under a tree. It's not easy in the world for the poor man, the one that brought you to reality. See, they don't want you to know about the black sheep. Even 7 roads to the 12 families all around the globe with an ancient code. Is it really asking a lot to say a dead old?